Ebro in the morning, Laura Styles and Rosenberg. Welcome to retirement.
Oh, absolutely, King.
Yeah, is that a congrats?
Yeah, no, I left
That's
on
a
my
congrats.
I left on my own terms, so it's
go.
definitely.
Yeah, so you didn't feel like you had to retire or was pushed out.
How old are you?
I'm 38.
38.
Yeah.
Now,
That's a
quick
good
recap for Eric Raymond. He was one of
Edwin.
Excuse me, it's Edwin.
Edwin Raymond. Excuse me, Edwin Raymond. He
Other
was
guys.
one
Not
of the
all E's are the same, and you should know.
That's right. I'm Ebro. He's Edwin. You were actually one of the cops that not only stood by Kaepernick, and we're very vocal about that, but we're also very vocal about police brutality and about police accountability. While being on the police force, you was a part of a documentary. What was the name of that documentary?
Crime and Punishment on Hulu. Yeah.
Crime and Punishment, yeah. Now, yourself and the other individuals on the NYPD that were in Crime and Punishment, are you guys still are they retired also, or are they still in the force?
Most of us are retired. It wasn't an easy battle at all. Mentally, it took a lot out of us. Some of, I'll be honest. Some of them, they're like, yo, if I could do it again, I don't know if I would have done all that, because the retaliation was swift and it was rough. But I keep
meaning when you guys put out the documentary, the retaliation from other police officers.
The leadership,
the union,
the union also, and even before the doc, because remember we started with the lawsuit 3 years before the doc dropped. Even when we just filed the lawsuit, it started. You understand? But with the documentary, it was just we became the rats.
And the lawsuit was specifically about quotas.
Yeah, well, we use the quotas because that's essentially what the department unlawfully does to get us to target Black and brown communities. But it's a 14th Amendment violation because that's equal protection. It's not equal if you see such a racial disparity in the enforcement, and we're not. Listen, is there overrepresentation when it comes to certain violent crime? Sure. Anybody that doesn't want to admit that, they're not being realistic. But we're talking about the number one thing enforced for 30 years was marijuana. The number one summons written was open container. These are things that everyone does everywhere, no matter the racial, where they fall racially, and yet the enforcement is over 85, sometimes over 90% Black and brown folks. That's discrimination. That's targeted, and we can't have that. That's not the way.
I guess the other piece of this conversation, reminding the audience kind of your story and for them to go do research, because there is a book which is your story in the book.
An Inconvenient Cop.
Yeah.
And which kind of takes us through all of this.
Yeah, Ibra, honestly, man, I ripped my chest open and poured my soul into that book. Like it's a body of work that I'm really hoping becomes the demands that we ask for, because there's certain things you can speculate all day. But it's only when you're on the inside, when you've seen the plumbing, when you take a real look under the hood, behind the curtain, do you know where to point fingers? You think about anything you've ever wanted to do, and when you actually do it, it's very different from what you expected. It's the same thing with policing. We hear the talking points; they're pretty ubiquitous now. It doesn't matter what part of the nation, but these are the talking points that are coming from someone that did 15 years in the most popular police department in the world with an extensive budget that other police departments copy their tactics and policies from. So 15 years, very analytical, philosophical, empirical, and some anecdotal stuff. But I can't wait for this thing to hit. It's already gotten amazing reviews in the book industry, but I really want this to be within 12 months. I want the demands of this book to be what elected officials, candidates, activists, advocates, and what we all start asking for. And I'm telling you, we're going to see some changes.
Well, Edwin, one of the reasons I called you Eric was because I wrote down Eric Adams. Because he's a former cop and he was who you just finished working for. Yeah. You don't look too happy to talk about him at this moment. But
certainly to be confused with him.
Yeah, or to be confused with him. But him coming into being a mayor, many of us knew that it would be business as usual for police, right? Because he's a cop, former cop, and we didn't think that he would be up for holding police accountable for their actions. Right now, on the NYPD, still employed, are several individuals who have tens of millions of dollars in payouts for misconduct. Yeah. They have not lost their job. There's a guy on there, I think, who has 48 misconduct charges, and they paid out some $30 million because of an individual. Mm-hmm. and this person is still on the job. Now, there's a narrow narrow definition of how the NYPD, determines if somebody's going to be able to keep their position or not, which is really based on them being found guilty. So it's not technically misconduct unless you actually are found guilty, according to the article I read. Never been a police officer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so now we're seeing you retiring. So we would see you as someone who's trying to make change, somebody who's a good cop, somebody who understands, okay, I'm signing up because I want to do something positive, not only for the community I come from, but for people who look like me and for NYPD to just have a better relationship with the community.
Yeah.
You're no longer there. However, there's individuals still there who taxpayer dollars have had to pay out millions of dollars because they, beaten a kid into being deaf, like loss of hearing.
Yeah, I read it. I didn't know about that case, but I did read it in that same article. That's something I want to look further into.
But so what is that?
Yeah.
And the reason I bring up Eric Adams in all of this is because is there actually change trying to be made? The police chief just stepped down. The woman, the first black woman police chief, stepped down. The rumor, they didn't want her to hold police accountable.
Yeah. All right, so this is, Ebro just threw me right into the fire. It's all good, though. This is what we're here for. So before we discuss the mayor, I have to be clear because, I ran for city council 2 years ago, and I realized a lot of people are not aware of his past as an activist. He was the original activist cop.
Yes, he was.
Right, 100 blacks in law enforcement who care. I seen that man speak truth to power. Honestly, when I was going through my battles on the inside, he was there as a mentor. When those cops set me up, which if you watch Crime and Punishment at the end, he called. He said that he would testify against the city if my case makes it to trial. So I have to be clear that the man that I've known for years is that man. But at the same time, I got to be honest that what I'm seeing now is not a reflection of that man. And it's something that I've been reluctant to speak about because I'm not in the room. There could be something, cooking up that I'm not privy to. But at this point, I gotta look at the leadership. Like the chief of patrol, Chief Shell. That man does not belong in that position. His past is just. There are other people who are ready to bring this thing to the right level. That man does not belong in that position, which takes it back to those lawsuits. There's a faction of the NYPD, particularly the leadership, they only believe in that cowboy style of policing, right? Particularly the gun collar, right? The gun arrest. That is the holy grail, right? And last time I was on the show, I was trying to explain it. As long as you are getting those guns, even if you have to exploit the gray area, which is code word for violate the Constitution, as long as you are delivering those guns, they will protect you with every part of the system that they can.
And most people listening to you right now and most taxpayers would likely be okay with what you're saying. Because they, in their mind,
you're getting the guns.
You're getting guns off the street.
Yeah, but there's a constitution for a reason. You know what I mean? And there's a way to do things. The problem is, for every gun that you get, the externalities, right? The collateral damage of how many black and brown, particularly men that you got to pull over, throw on the wall, let me see your bag, just violating the 4th Amendment and 14th Amendment. For every gun that you get, how many of those do you get? You understand? And that's the problem. And it just creates a bigger wedge between the community and the people. And after a while, it can start to affect your life, your mental health. Like, I was at a police officer's birthday party last week, and 2 cops walked in, uniform cops. So we all, everybody's off duty, and someone that works for the police department as a civilian was like, yo, how am I working for the police department when they came in? I'm like, yo, they're about to shut shit down. It's like they're not even there, they just came to eat. There was some food at the party. But
the uniform represented.
And this is someone working, and he was working in the police department, and even he felt like they're about to shut. Like, that comes from constant harassment, you understand?
Right.
And I don't think it's worth, that harassment is not worth. And let me say this, right? I was born in the hood, East Flatbush, raised in the hood, East Flatbush, and still live in the hood, East Flatbush. The last thing that I would ask for is any policy that would increase violence in the hood, because it could affect me, it could affect the people that I grew up with, people that I love. So I would not sit here and push back on policy, because I don't just talk about this, and then ride to the comforts of suburbia. Like, I'm talking about this, but I live in it. And I'm telling the leadership of the police department, the mayor's office, that type of policing is not essential for public safety, especially if civil rights is something that you actually worry about.
So what you're saying is, if you thought that these measures were super effective. And ultimately, even if there was some stuff that wasn't ideal, if you thought it was really effective for making the community safer and better for people, you might not be so outspoken on it, but you see firsthand that this is not an effective measure in making the community safer.
Yeah, specifically due to the collateral damage, it's not P. It's not. You know what I mean? And regardless of how I feel, it still has to be within legal parameters. Like, we cannot dance around that, because, you know, they'll encroach, and before you know it, we don't have rights. You understand? So this is why, you know, I decided to retire from the police department to continue this fight, particularly because after I did your show it was 5 years ago, it's crazy. Right. After the documentary came out right around that time, over 2,000 cops have reached out nationwide, right, wishing that they could also share their story. Some have, right? One as far as the UK, Metropolitan Police in UK. And that's when, you know, God bless our brother Soul, Michael K. Williams, you know, he became a big supporter. He was like, yo, ER, as he referred to me, he was like, you're in the spotlight, but what I need you to do is be the spotlight and shine it on others. You are in a very special position, being in the NYPD, where you could actually, you know, amplify the voice of other cops, the justice-minded cops, as we call them. And I was like, you know what, you're right, MK. And this is part of the mission now, leaving it. I couldn't do it while still in. I did everything that I could while still in. I'm ready to amplify the voices of cops all over this nation. Again, over 2,000 have already reached out. You know, just pay attention, stay tuned.
You realize how crazy it is that you need to come up with a special word for cops who are about justice?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it should be built into the word. Right. That should be the word.
Yeah. You would think. But tell us about Inconvenient Conversations. Okay. We have a lot of community leaders.
Yes. So, you know, in the book coming out, I decided, because I've been to book events, right? And so a lot of my friends are authors. And sometimes they're a little boring, right? And sometimes, like, especially when it's a celebrity author, people will go because they want to be in the orbit of that celebrity that they're a fan of. But it's not really about the book. Nothing about the book event makes them leave saying, I got to read this, right? Because I want people to really absorb this information. Inconvenient Conversations is basically an activation of it's an experience that's going to activate this movement. This is why, you know, where book events are hyper-focused on the author and the book, I got Malik Yoba, who's going to be interviewing me on stage. We have Mia Bell, you know, shout out to Mia Bell, who's going to MC the event.
997's own.
Exactly. Yes. You know, Sean King, Dr. Ilyasa Shabazz, Tamika Mallory, Terrence Floyd, the brother of George Floyd, and our public advocate, Jemani Williams. They're essentially it's not a panel, they're gonna speak, you know, their truth to power and how they see these issues. And then Malik and I have something very special in how we're gonna present this book, you understand? But it's so much more than a book. The book is just the tangible that you leave with. It's really the experience that people, you know, I want people to come in for.
I also have to, we were talking about an article a little bit ago. I have to say, in that same article, they did talk about, somebody from the NYPD did say that they feel like there is a newer culture in the NYPD, and how some of the complaints, or many of the complaints, have subsided in years following the George Floyd protests and the CCRB review and some of this stuff. And there's just a new, fresh perspective on policing. Yeah. Would you say that's true or false?
So it's a little bit of both. So one, you know, you have younger, newer cops who, in their formative years, you know, they saw, like, they were in high school when Eric Garner happened. You understand? So, like, they, due to social media, they got all these images from all around the nation of how terrible policing can be. And then they came in when a lot of progressive legislation and the work, basically what I call the working, a lot of the work of activists, et cetera, had already changed the course. Like, the work from Crime and Punishment and everything else, it actually suppressed the quotas to almost to the point that it didn't exist. The quotas had kind of really just been focused on traffic violations, but where you have to get, you know, 4 arrests, 10 summonses, and 10 stop and frisks a month, that a lot of them, they walked in not knowing that. So there's just a lot less enforcement because of the working. You know, the department's leaders, sometimes they reference to the less enforcement as if it's something that they sanction and something that they champion and were for. They weren't.
The pressure of the community has made it that
the
way.
working, you understand? But at the same time, many people in the department, in leadership positions, they call me every week. At some point, I get a call saying that, it looks like this numbers game is coming back, man. Why would you retire now? We need you now. You know what I'm saying? How you going to retire? You did what you did. Yeah, it changed things, but it's starting to come back. And that's, again, because of the leadership. The people in power now, they respect. The only metric that they see as efficient is that cowboy shit, And this is why especially in the Bronx is getting torn up right now. And I mean, is there
violence? When you say torn up, what do you mean?
Like you walk and everybody's hopping out, checking your bag, like illegal searches. You understand? And because of body cams, right? This is supposed to suppress that, but let me tell you, there's two types of ways to get into a police encounter. There's a radio run. That means somebody calls 911, you have a description, there's someone waiting for the service. And then there's something called a pickup job, right? In a radio run, you're supposed to activate your body camera immediately. So there's no buffer, like if there's very difficult to play games and violate rights because the camera's
Somebody
rolling.
Somebody call 911.
Exactly. And the camera's rolling while you're still in the car. But a pickup job is, me and P, that's my partner, we see something.
You look like police.
Right? We said that last time.
Right. Always the same damn jokes.
Right?
Hey, white guy, bald head.
Yeah, but I'm not wearing like an open Yankee jersey.
Nah, if you had like the summer league Yankees batting hat on, you'd be good. and some beige camos.
Yeah, that's another
beige cargo shorts.
Yeah, that's
beige cargo shorts.
We gotta get back to the cargos. But yeah, so we riding around, we see something, we hop out. That's called a pickup. By the rules, you're supposed to activate that camera the minute. Hey, P, look, we're supposed to, but really they don't, right? Because they have that time to violate. And then when they get what they need, be it the gun or whatever, that's when they turn it on and they make it seem in the narrative as if it followed the rules and the law.
Protocol.
You understand? And so there's still ways to play games with enforcement, but they believe, these are people that don't understand our communities who believe that this is how we have to be treated. And listen, I get it. The block is hot. The block could be hot. I get it. But you just don't have to do it that way. You understand? Like I saw a video about 2 months ago, a young 16-year-old kid skateboarding to football practice in Queens. But he had a bag, and they stopped him. I mean, his mouth was a little crazy, but you could tell he just wasn't used to this. And again, because of the work, and that's another thing. We went from nearly 700,000 stopping for us in 2011 to less than 50,000 after the federal case, right? The Supreme Court case. And so a lot of these young folks, I'll say anybody born after 1999, they don't really know
what it was.
They don't know, right? So getting stopped like that, his mouth was a little crazy, but he was being violated. Now, was there a technicality because he was riding the skateboard on the sidewalk? Sure. But to use that technicality to then, and you can see the cops felt embarrassed, but when that pressure's on, this is how they behave. And so to see that coming back under this administration, it's confusing, and we can't have that.
So we got away from it a little bit, and I understand your relationship's complex, and you've seen many sides of Eric Adams. But what the thing you said, you kind of alluded to it, that what you've seen so far with the leadership is not it. Specifically, I mean, is Adams doing anything to make policing better in New York? Because on the outside looking in, it kind of looks like for many years the cops hated de Blasio, and now they got someone who's a friend. That's how it feels on the outside looking in.
And you know what's crazy, P? Like, there are people that have been appointed into top leadership positions since he's been mayor who were getting ready to retire just because he became mayor-elect, because they thought it was going to be the opposite. The conversation at NYPD is, this guy fucking hates us. They hated him when he was 100 Blacks. They hated him as a cop. They hated him as a state senator. Some of the most progressive legislation we've had, from raise the age to the quota bill.
He supported
supported all of it. So they thought,
So I'm sorry to cut you off, but we've been having this debate because I've been telling Rosenberg that he's been trying to play cozy with conservative media and all that, and I never articulated what you just said, which is because of his history.
He's trying to reverse the narrative,
right? Of that.
But why?
Narrative.
But like he
wants 2 terms.
And in order in this climate particular, he needs to seem like a law and order. He needs to be a law and order
unifier. He needs to be a unifier. But that's what he needs to be.
Yeah, listen, I don't have all the answers for that, but I know the man that I believe that I knew. I know his record. You understand? And that's why when he became mayor-elect, a lot of the progressives like, oh, it's over, we got a cop, this, that. I said, but I'm a cop. You know, and they're like, oh shit, you are. I was like, and you have to understand his history. And that's when I started learning a lot of people don't know his history.
But then what you're saying is, unfortunately, you're thinking a lot of them got proven right.
Yes.
He is a cop.
Yes.
Right, so far.
Yeah. So yeah, the mea culpa, the two, I've had to touche a few times. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Again, I'm not in the room. Could there be a larger plan that I'm just not privy to? Sure. But right now, just in terms of some of the appointments I've seen, I don't understand what's going on. We have some real talent in the NYPD. We have justice-minded folks ready to carry this thing and literally be a template for the nation. But they're being, they're just
being stifled.
Exactly. I mean, I have to say it, and I hope my brother understands, but, Captain Derby St. Fort is, man, I'm telling you, is that's someone that should be elevated immediately. And yet, I think they're afraid of him, honestly, because what he's ready to bring to policing, it will be a model for the nation, if not the world. But yet, again, he's
not. And now
the
fact that you said his name, they're going to go that much harder to keep him out, right?
Yeah, but I need the people to know Captain Derby St. Fort is a truly justice-minded individual. In the position of captain, he's an executive. And once you get to captain, any other position that's higher is all discretion, right? You take a test to get to captain. You take the sergeant's test, the lieutenant's test, and the captain's test. But after that, they have to like you. After that, someone has to say you deserve ascension. And unfortunately, what we've seen is just the status quo is they're trying to ignore his existence. And I got to put it on the record. That is an amazing brother who's ready. Essentially, what he's in a position to do was my original plan. I never wanted to be a whistleblower and an activist. I was under the impression that once I'm working for this organization as a kid from the hood, they would take what I have to say, more seriously because I'm blue now. And I didn't, I wasn't ready for that immediate defense that they went on trying to take my head off. But I learned and I adjusted quickly, became the whistleblower, et cetera. But what Captain St. Fort is getting ready to do, that was my original plan, make it to the executive levels and then implement change from there. We need him elevated, right? The mayor wrote an op-ed with him. The mayor spoken so highly about me, and yet it was radio silence once he became mayor. I've been in rooms where he has looked right over my head. I don't get it. But this ain't about me and him. This is about the larger mission.
There, and the reason I say not yet is because I guess when somebody knows the information and they know the ins and outs and who they were, there's something in you that goes, nah, bro, just because you got this job, you playing the game to get in a certain position. I hope you come back around to represent what we know you can. Because I saw first term Obama, same thing. People was like, yo, this dude was an activist, community organizer. Then he becomes president. He was a senator. He was young. He was outspoken that first term. He couldn't get anything done because it was so much about getting relationships and building da-da-da. And then the second term, he gets there and he does medical and some other things happen and we...
But he didn't cozy up to the right.
The Tea Party, the midterms kind of, they took the legislative.
But a lot of things happened. Yeah. And I don't know, Eric Adams goes on some radio show, I've been told he goes on that's some super right-wing.
Yeah. He goes on WABC.
And which is why I'm is he trying to be this unifier,
Listen,
this whole we can all have a convo even if we disagree guy type of thing?
I'll jump in, but Laura, I thought you were going to say something before.
Yeah, let's finish this and I want to ask you something else.
So let me tell you, 2 years ago when I was running for office, right, one of my consultants said, your heart's in the right place, but I don't think you understand politics. I was like, what do you mean? And she said, are you ready to say one thing to a group of people at 1 p.m. and a complete opposite to another group at 5 p.m.? I said, absolutely not. It was then you're not ready. You understand? So when people become politicians, right, they make politically expedient decisions. And it just might be that's where,
Or they say, my problem is they say politically expedient things.
Yeah.
But your decisions, what the actual action item is, what actually gets done is what I'm trying to look for.
You're right. It was that's one of the 48 laws is talk about change but do nothing. Something
right.
Say all the right things but don't actually change anything. But go ahead, Laura.
No, you were talking about being a police officer during some of the biggest protests in New York City, during defund the police.
That was a lot.
And it's interesting to me because I know I remember having conversations with friends of mine who are police officers who are actually for it. They're like, of course, I'm all for allocating funds to moving funds to another department who specializes in treating people with mental health issues, etc. But how was it for you working in the inside, and how did other police officers feel who couldn't necessarily speak up because it became such a political thing? Like you're either for it or against it.
Yeah. So when the George Floyd video first started going viral, I saw something I never thought I would see. Cops all around the nation started speaking out, sometimes in uniform, breaking protocol, like, essentially in a position to be reprimanded. But that didn't last long because people was like, fuck all police, right? And I was there at the Barclays Center at Washington Square once the night before they tried to free the animals in the Bronx Zoo. So when they had to work the Bronx Zoo, at the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge. And it was weird because, I would get some of the heat also, but then every single time somebody would recognize me. It was like, oh shit, that's Lieutenant Raymond. No, he's good. So I didn't feel it as much as my peers because of the work that I've done as an activist. But it was still difficult because, I wanted to rip the uniform off and jump right into protest with them. You understand? But at the same time, I understood me being there helps things go smooth. But the main thing, though, Laura, and this isn't really about me, a lot of cops called me, and it was like, some of them in tears, like, fuck this job, I'm leaving. I'm ready to quit. I don't even respect this job. Like, I see what this job done. I'm a single black woman with a kid. Like, I don't even trust this job to do right by my son. But they don't know that because I'm in that uniform. I'm trying to run. When they giving notifications for the protest, I'm trying to run out the door before they get me. They think I want to stand there and I opposite them. No, I don't. I was like, the people don't get that. And what I was telling a lot of my peers was like, the fact that you're feeling this is the reason why we need you here. Because if you didn't feel it, you'd be part of the problem. They don't see this, but we need you. But a lot of them quit anyway, man.
Can't take it.
Yeah, the numbers went terrible. Like, the numbers are actually really bad right now.
Because you had people leaving for that reason, but then you had people leaving because they felt like, I want to go to a more police-friendly state or city where, I can basically mistreat people and not get in trouble.
Yeah, Governor DeSantis actually, he put that call out there. He said anybody that's being... anybody that's working in a police department. And
anyone that's being held accountable for doing wrong
If you're tired
things,
of being held accountable for doing bad, come to Florida.
You're our guy.
Yeah, no, seriously, pretty much in a nutshell, that's what he say. The blue states, blue cities, however you refer to it, but that's the dog whistle. If you don't want to be... Essentially, what you said, that's what it. And a lot of
if you don't want the community who pays your salary to have say-so over your conduct...
We should do a glossary for all the dog whistle terms for what they really mean.
That'd be awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A full gloss, because that's a whole thing. The whole blue state. George Soros obviously means Jews.
Yeah. Burn
Is
the
that
books.
what that means?
George Soros always means Jews.
Yeah, burn the books. That's crazy.
Burn the books is deep. I mean, that's
Fahrenheit 451, man. It's like art imitating life. It's crazy, or life imitating art, rather.
Inconvenient Conversation, Saturday, October 14th, King's Theater, doors at 6.
Awesome. Tamika
Mallory, Ilyasa Shabazz, Sean King, Mia Bell hosting, my boy Malik Yoba hosting. Jamani Williams is there with tribute, Michael K. Williams, Terrence Floyd will be there. And your book.
Yeah.
What's the title?
It's called An Inconvenient Cop, My Fight to Change Policing in America.
And so... As a New York City, individual raised here in New York City, Brooklyn specific, I suspect now that you're retired, we're going to be seeing you a lot, organizing, helping people. Now, is there a world where your relationship with the NYPD can even help those build that community?
Of course, yeah.
Is that something that they would even, as a retired cop, allow you to be a part of with the NYPD? Do they hate your guts, basically?
They're not too happy about it. Like, I'm enemy of the state. You understand? Especially after that Ebro interview, man. I got a lot of heat for that, man.
Really?
Yeah, 5 years ago, that interview went pretty viral in the NYPD.
Still today,
man.
People walk up to Laura Stiles, cops will walk up to Laura Stiles, like, we listen to you all the time, we love you even though you don't like us. And we're like, we don't have a problem.
Yeah.
With y'all, it's not a personal dig. Like, you're doing a job. You put on a uniform.
Yeah.
You're representing something that as a system has done some bad things to the community. It's not you personally. We understand that you probably signed up to do this job because you want to do right, and you want to have a good city job, and you want a great pension, you want to retire. Like, there's a lot of reasons and positive reasons to be a cop and do the right things and help people. But there's also a history tied to policing in this nation, and even more locally, history tied to being an NYPD officer. So it's not personal that we're going to talk shit, but we're going to talk shit.
And conversations about accountability shouldn't make you uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It shouldn't make you uncomfortable.
You know what I mean? But they know what it is. Because I've seen cops in the locker room say something, right? And then when Jumaane Williams say, yo, fuck that dude. Yo, you said the same thing last week in the locker room. And they're like, oh shit, I did. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I could talk about my mom. You can't talk about my mom.
Well, that's that thin blue line ish.
Everybody like being in a gang, man. Everybody, you know your gang out here wilding.
Yeah.
Y'all out here wilding.
Yeah.
Whether it's state sanctioned or not. Some people run around here acting like gangs and abusing people.
Yeah.
And getting away with it.
Well, we often loosely throw around the term protect so-and-so at all costs. In a real way, we need to protect Edwin Raymond at all costs. You know what I mean? In a real way. Because you've put yourself in the crossfire, bro. That's. Do you get nervous?
Yeah. Damn, I don't really want this question. Damn. Fuck.
Well, that's the whole thing that kind of like is over this whole thing.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. That's why it's important that we have the conversation publicly, though.
Yeah.
So we, the people, you know what I mean? So the people can be there for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the work you're doing is important, brother.
And it's important for everyone to support you.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you and we thank you for what you're doing for our community and the conversations that you're leading.
Thank you.
Thanks, Edwin.
Yeah. That's love.
Give it up one time, Edwin Raymond.